they would leave. So I never really got to know very many of them intimately. I got to know all of them because we had they had problems we would take care of, and they needed, if they had a cold and they had to fight and so on. But I learned a lot from these individuals because the weather officer was a major, and he became a good friend. I became a good friend, and so they had a briefing. At that time, Curtis LeMay was the 5th Air Force general. He'd fly in, I think he flew in twice in that area. He'd land, and he had his privately marked airplane, and he'd take off again. But they were briefing because at that time there was the Cold War with Russia, and the continued surveillance that was existed indicated that we had to have weather reports on places in strategic locations in Russia in the event that something happened. Right. And our base had to take off. They had the fighter aircraft would be taken off, and then the bombers that were sitting there, and then that base would have been written off, and everybody that was there would have been whatever happened to the individual. So our job was to get those airplanes off the ground. Sure. So I spent a lot of time in the weather reporting. Subsequently, when I came back, I got a commercial multi-engine instrument pilot's rating, and I owned an airplane for a long time until recently. And because I really enjoyed flying, and I used to go up in the T-33, which was the training version of the F-86, which was a very small fighter aircraft. It was that and the MiG-15 had the same profile, and they were both taken off design, German designs for the swept wing, and they were copied because the German design into jets was far advanced. So I got to spend a lot of time with these individuals, learned about planning, and I can still remember the fighter aircraft training, and it had to do with, there was a mission, there was always a mission, and that was put on the board when they were out there, the mission, and then accumulated data, which had to do with meteorological data, weather, and how many, what the elevations were, where the mission was going to be, and how many fighters they had in there, what kind of ground cover they had. The accumulated data, not unlike the medical service. If you come in and you have a patient comes in and there's a mission to get the patient well, then you accumulate data, blood pressure and all the other things that go along with it. And then out of that you develop a plan. And then from the plan there is a briefing. You talk to the patient, well, here there was a briefing and this is where we're going to go, this is what we're going to do. You're going to bomb a place, you're going to have fighter aircraft, you're going to meet, and there's going to be a sortie or whatever. And then once you have the briefing, everybody goes out, and everybody is in briefing, the mechanics and the persons that were tied to this. And then there would be a flawless execution, never perfect, and that's flawless when they would take off. Now you take off in a Phantom jet, lifts off at 300 miles an hour, within seconds you're 600 miles an hour. If one of the gauges fails, you have to make a decision. Right now, can I complete the mission without this gauge? If the answer is yes, you continue on. If the answer is no, you abort. And then you have a flawless execution. You make corrections until you get back. You have a debriefing, and then you win. Well, this was something that I captured and I've used for my own conduct. And since right now, not too long ago, a fellow named Sullenberger landed an Airbus on the Hudson River, and everybody survived. Incredible. This individual is an outlier, and an outlier is somebody that is very expert in what he or she does by virtue of the fact that they've got at least 10,000 hours. And he has about 19,000 hours because you can't fly like normally. So this is the thing that you've asked. The question that you've asked me is about how was that Kunsan Airport, and it was filled with things that were exciting, where I was able to learn a lot from the pilots and from the other individuals, which changed my life tremendously. But it was a place where the Japanese had 0 hangars, and historically there were a lot of bad things that happened there. And the Zero hangars, not like Pearl Harbor, where all the airplanes were packed together so that the Japanese could come in and bomb, each hangar had an airplane. It was alongside the runway. And in that, the pilot lived there. Then if there was a bomber type, they had the bombardier, and they had the mechanics, and they all lived in there, so that if you were going to destroy the aircraft, you'd have to bomb each one of the little hangars. Well, in these hangars, they were still there, and there were remnants. But in those hangars, when MacArthur was pushed back, those were the hangars where the North Koreans and the Chinese captured the individuals who were on that base and did unspeakable things to them, because they left the medics and they left the sick and so on. And when they came back, there were pictures, they were horrendous of what happened. And that's where that all happened, because that's where MacArthur had left. They did return, and then they went up, and then they were stopped at the 38th parallel, so that that's another story. But that was not when I was there, that was before I got there, so that was the base. And so we lived in the Quonset huts and the little buildings that the Japanese officers and then the troops, there were also barracks, and so this was a base that had been used by the Japanese, and then after the Second World War, U.S. took it over, and that's what that base was like. We had a chapel, we had built Quonset huts and the facilities. The building that I worked in, and the hospital worked in, they were just Quonset huts and tents. It was a MASH hospital.
All right. Okay. Let's just say now you're getting close to coming back to the U.S. now. Your tour duty is ramping up. Did you fly out from there, and where did you go?
Went back to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, because they usually try to assign you where you're close to your home, so that when you separate, it's going to be convenient. But Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is in Ohio. It's a huge facility, and they've got several commands there. They have SAC, they have fighter squadrons, and so that was a whole new experience. It was like coming back to the lap of luxury. Golf clubs and theaters in Columbus was not that far away. So there were a modern hospital with facilities that were first class.
Okay, so you were assigned there to
complete my tour.
To complete your tour.
My tour duty, right.
Well, what was it like being back in the U.S.? I know you said you were in a more modern facility, but what was it like just being back?
It was wonderful, because all of a sudden, one night, obviously I came home first, and then I had been assigned to Wright-Patterson, and so I had time with my family. I had 30 days. I married my fiancée, Evelyn. It was a wonderful thing. Then we had time to take a couple of weeks for traveling and getting to know each other. We drove to Phoenix, Arizona, cross country, so we saw much of the country as I got used to each other, and then came back and went back to Ohio and at Wright-Patterson, and started the life there. We were off the main runway at Wright-Patterson, so all night long aircraft, heavy bombers were taking off, and this is the time when we had this constant surveillance all over the world. And Evelyn, my wife, enjoyed it. She liked the sound of the aircraft taking off at night. I never did find out why. Maybe I'll ask her. I was comfortable because when I was at Kunsan, the aircraft were taking off all night, and so without the noise, if the sound stopped, I would awaken, because it was different. Wonderful base. The Air Force Museum is there, and so there were times for working in there. And then they had movie theaters, and the 23, I believe 23,000 individuals were on the base at Wright-Patterson. So it's a great place.
Okay. Did you entertain staying in the service?
Yes, when you had to make a choice of whether you wanted to stay in or whether you wanted to separate. And I had, I could have stayed. I enjoyed it a great deal, and it was, if I'd stayed, I already would have had 6 or 8 years of time.